freaking time. You would think that these buttons wouldn't be so close to each other to make me mess up all the freaking time, but they are. And no, I don't want... Yes, okay. Goodness gracious. I don't know why. Anyway, Facebook. All the time. Hi, you're watching the behind the scenes. Hopefully I've done this right. And I'm in the dojo. And hello, Getting Gear Dojo grads. We are now going live. Hello, beautiful people. It's Bonnie Gillespie on 2:30 Pacific, the 11th of November, 2017, making this our monthly group coaching call for Self-Management for Actors All Access Tune-Ups program. Hooray! Love you, beautiful people. So happy to have this time with y'all as always. It has been quite an interesting few weeks. Obviously, those of you who are down with this membership long term know that we do these monthly check-ins, but of course on the months in which we do the big free quarterly calls, like October, we do the much bigger production in front of the whole world of ninjas out there in the world of Ninja Land and beyond. So there are folks that are not a part of our membership program that get to participate in those quarterly calls. But here in these monthly group calls, we can do a little deeper dive on some of the subjects. We can give a little more time for some things to unfold. We can continue conversations that we're having over in the private membership area for All Access in the dojo. And I also simulcast the behind the scenes into the private dojo Facebook group, which is for graduates of Getting Gear for the next tier. And obviously some of y'all are members of both populations, which is great because then it allows you to have the option of watching or listening, whichever might be your preference. I had my team go through and look for questions that were posted before this call earlier this morning, and there were none that were posted ahead of time. And I was thinking about that because some months we have lots of questions that have been posted right before the call, and then some months we have, like now, none. And I was kind of thinking about that and going, well, gosh, why doesn't anybody have any questions for me right now? We're in the thick of meeting season after drop season, so a lot of private coaching clients and masterminders are working with me on upgrading their demo reel footage. And y'all saw that I wrote about this in the Bond Blast, and really shifting that footage from co-star to guest star. And we're having lots of strategy sessions for brand prov and how to make sure that you're sitting in front of that hell yes rep and really showing them in the room that you are the client match that you believe yourself to be, all that good stuff. So I was a little surprised to see 0 questions. Also, with all the shit going on right now in our beloved industry, and I use all the shit going on in our beloved industry phrase to mean day after day after day after day more being revealed about the sexual crimes, the sexual harassment, the sexual assaults, alleged, the journalist in me must add alleged everywhere. But oh my God, for fuck's sake, it is exhausting, it's fatiguing. And I then realized that could be why there aren't a ton of questions right this second, because everybody's just kind of feeling that overall sense of conflicted, complex emotions. And I'm going to label them conflicted and complex, and I'm going to just spend a minute here talking about me and my conflicted and complex feelings. Because since we didn't have questions submitted in advance, obviously we'll get y'all hopping in the hot seat. For those of you who are here live on the call, that want to jump in and ask questions, *2 to raise your hand here in the phone conference, and we'll get you in the queue. And I think, Keith, you are keeping an eye on questions that are typed in, or if I'm supposed to do that. I always forget we do it differently for the quarterly than we do the monthly, and I've got rusty muscles for the monthly right now. So anyway, I'm going to talk for just a couple minutes on this, and then we'll open it up for any questions here live on the call. But I was journaling last night, and by last night, I mean at like 4 o'clock this morning, about this whole thing. Because, one of you beautiful members emailed me earlier this week and said, it's devastating that all of this is coming to light. But then I also realized, oh my God, this is shit Bonnie told me was happening when we first started coaching together a decade ago. None of this is news, except it's news, which means it is constantly in front of us. And it is really tough to turn down the volume on something that is getting a lot of airplay right now in the media. And so your Twitter feed, your Instagram, everything, your Facebook, your actual television news, even if you listen to music on the radio, the times that they're breaking in between and talking, this is the topic. And every conversation seems to wind its way back to, how do you feel about all this? And what do you think about all this? And did you know about this? And has it ever happened to you? And it's exhausting to have this as the topic of conversation so frequently. And what I was journaling last night was that it's the kind of exhaustion for which I know I need to steel myself. I know I need to really engage in big old 5-level self-care, because as leaders in this industry, we are looked to for how to handle this, how to talk about this, how to reconcile what it is that is going on. And it is never more important than now to really take good care of ourselves, because we still have a job to do. And in my mind, our job is no different today than it was a month ago or 2 months ago, because all these things were already going on, and in many cases for years and decades. And it is just the reveal of it that is new. And that reveal means the conversations that are compounded are much more active. The number of times we're having to talk about this with people outside the industry as well as folks in the industry are increasing. And that number increasing means that we have to be prepared in our brand prov for how do we handle this? Like, I know when I get into a place where I've just got a rage tweet, I know I'm going to lose followers, and I have to look at that and say, how do I feel as far as my brand is concerned? How do I feel about the potential for losing followers because I'm about to rage in a multi-part tweet about what's going on, versus how it feels to not say something? And I think that constant checking of the balance that we're feeling as leaders in this industry is part of why the self-care is so vitally important right now. Because if we're not looking out for how to take care of ourselves at a time when we are being looked to for, how am I supposed to feel about this? Because to people that this is a surprise, to people where this is total news, where the people who had zero idea that each of these predators was in fact behaving this way for so long, when these people learn about it and are shocked, they are looking to us who've known about it for, how am I supposed to feel, and how have you been able to go on with doing business as usual with this always having been a part of your culture. And it is that very odd balance of, we keep doing our work because the show must go on, and we've always been working despite these circumstances forever. And the other side of that coin being, now that it is more out there and being spoken about, we do have to do business in a little different way. The reason I'm talking about it at this level is because I have a masterminder who's not in either of the Getting Gear or All Access populations, but I wrote a little bit about something she had experienced in a bond blast, so y'all may be familiar with this. She, in Mastermind, was talking about having to go back to the writer's room after a dismantling of some of the higher-ups on the show that she works on. And that HR came down from network and did the whole, like, making sure everybody's okay. You know, if you need to talk, we're over here. All right, get back to work. Have at it. Go. You've got a show to do. And she was really thrown by this because this is her first writer's room. And she said there were people in the hallway crying. This was really challenging to have someone who is in our midst every day extracted because of these charges, and we're expected to just go back to work, do the show. And then when, of course, the news came out about Ridley Scott and the decision to recast and reshoot all of the Kevin Spacey scenes in the film coming out with already scheduled for December 22nd release. And of course, I know what kind of budget we're talking about for this kind of reshoot this tight before a release date. And of course, what that means about how valuable this property is in the world of award season, and how awards and paid ads and the campaign and the politics and all of that have already been set, and the studio can't lose this movie. They can't just push it. They can't say, well, we'll reshoot, but let's now release in the spring. It has to come out on the schedule in order to be a contender for the Academy Awards. And of course, it is going to have even more support in the theaters with this all this attention on it for what they're doing. So what we're now calling pulling a Ridley Scott and retooling something and still getting the product out on time is a part of how Hollywood works. And it's a part of how Hollywood has always worked. It's just that now it's how Hollywood is working while we are actively having conversations that before were kept hush-hush. And that is the part that is requiring a little more bandwidth on the part of everyone. And so when you're wondering why it is that things just feel so much more exhausting about this, especially if you're someone who, like me, has known and talked about within your network about these people and what they're up to and what that means in terms of you got a meeting with this exec, okay, great, don't go alone. Or, oh, your show is going to go on that network with this person as your exec producer. Make sure that you know that this is part of the culture that you're stepping into, and that we just prep ourselves for that hostile environment. The difference now being we prep ourselves for that hostile environment, plus we're talking about what it's been like to work in that hostile environment, plus we're talking about what we do to make sure that we're never again in that kind of hostile environment, and still do your job. Eyes on the prize. Get to work. That kind of shit is what is creating that hypersensitive, oh my God, I need a nap vibe that's going all through Hollywood right now. And the reason I'm bringing this up as a topic, in addition to the fact that it's just impacting me greatly this week, I had a meeting with a manager this week and felt it turn when we got on this topic. And that made me think, oh, you guys are going out for meetings because it's meeting season, and this topic is going to come up. And part of your brand prov right now needs to be having yourself prepped for conversations that are just really shitty to have, but so important to have. Keith, yeah, go ahead. Hop in.
Okay, so part of, for me, as we're going through all of this, the part that people aren't talking about, the part that people, it's sort of hanging in the air, is this notion that sort of if you're in the industry and you see Man Behind the Curtain, you've known this stuff has been going on basically since forever. You know, Casting Couch, all of the producer stuff, you know, God help you if you lived through the 70s with this, let alone the 50s when women didn't have the right to say no. And for me, a lot of the anxiety, a lot of the angst that I'm seeing with a lot of people who really did legitimately know this stuff was going on, but it was kept, and the word Bonnie uses, you know, sort of right, it was kept hush-hush. One of the things I'm seeing, and one of the things that we all need to think about is the accusation from Middle America and the world was, well, if you knew this was going on, going back to, and I'm going to pitch the movie An Open Secret one more time, everybody needs to see it. You know, it's an important thing to see.
It's hard.
The accusation that's coming is not, you know, has it ever happened to you, or have you done it, or any of that stuff, but if you knew it was going on and you didn't say anything, aren't you complicit? And that accusation kind of has to be met with the notion of, yes, in as much as I didn't have any power to change it, but didn't, sacrifice my career to have a clean conscience. Yes, I am complicit, and the reality is, sort of everyone that we're talking to is complicit, and for me, that notion is yes, and I'm as guilty as the power I didn't have,
right.
And we are trying to build the Hollywood we want to be a part of, and moving forward, because of what has happened in the last year, stepping up is going to be easier, and I'm using easier in air quotes, because the reality is, with what we've seen, people say tip of the iceberg, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Power is a crazy thing, and it has, what we've seen is the tip of the iceberg. Tip of the iceberg. And will all those other people crumble? Will they be called to task for what they've done? No. Will it be continued to be covered up? Yes.
Absolutely.
So all of the people who didn't get caught and haven't been caught will continue doing exactly what they have been doing until they get caught. It's just now that exposing them and them getting caught is easier than it was last year. So for me, I have this notion that we are all complicit, and we have to find a way to be okay with that. And that's all I got.
Cool. Thanks, babe. This ties in with one of the earlier emails that I wrote on the subject. And if you don't recall the email, it is up at my blog. I archive a lot of the Bond blasts that I feel are stronger pieces and that are not just emails, that they should be out on my website. This one in particular, I said, we have to understand that we've created a culture in which this sort of thing being the blanket for anything that we want to hide and act like isn't happening, and power plays using sexual favors or harassment, exposure, you name it. It varies whether we're talking about happening in a hotel room, a writer's room, a casting room. It's all levels of this power play. We create a culture and continue to support a culture in which this sort of thing exists when we try to hide our age, when we try to plump up our credits to make it look like the little tiny one-liner was actually a recurring guest star, or the extra work was very highly featured, or we use spin of any kind and say, hey, that's okay. Because we live in a world of magic tricks, we live in a world where magic is expected. And I mean that in the positive, where we create worlds that didn't exist and people from all over the world spend money on entertainment we created. And that is an incredibly powerful and beautiful and moving and potentially healing thing. All the way to the other side of that, which is magic tricks like, now what are you talking about? She's lying. He's lying. I must have been drunk. That didn't happen. I've never done that. Or Jeremy Piven, fuck Jeremy Piven with his own dick, and his latest thing of we're now going on a witch hunt and the industry is trying to take people down just because it's a convenient time to do that. And I'm sorry, when an oppressed group finally gets to step up and say something is happening, the last thing you do, privileged rich white man, is come back at us and tell us that we are on a witch hunt. Sorry, not sorry, fuck you with your own dick. Aside from that, it is important to understand that we are a part of it in as much as we love spin when it serves us. We love the convenience of being able to shave years off our age with Botox or filters. We love being able to get media training and have our publicists teach us how to do our brand prov in a way that serves how we want to be seen versus who we truly authentically are. Unless our brand is our true authentic selves, in which case, it's all beautifully aligned. But there are a lot of people running around with a very different big giant head, great and powerful Oz from the guy behind the curtain. That these two things are very, very different for many people. And because of that, it is a world in which this sort of culture exists. When Keith and I were on vacation last month, we were at a wedding, an industry wedding, and one of the people at our table before the wedding, when we were just doing all of our celebrating and getting together and before the ceremony, catching up with one another. She's a very well-known actress, ninja, but hasn't worked with us for a few years in a coaching or class setting, but she's very well-known. And she and I were sitting there talking about a meeting that she has coming up with an agent. And I immediately accessed the Bond brain that is the show Bible deluxe up here and said, oh, be careful, and then listed off things that I knew about how he had behaved in a meeting with another ninja years ago. And I said, now, obviously, that was years ago. That was one person. That's not a ton of data. And I'm all about, I want lots of data before I decide that a person is a problem, which is why when, sidebar, someone pushed back at me on my email in which I specifically talked about Kevin Spacey and wrote back and said, what examples do you have of Kevin Spacey behaving this way? And I was just like, believe me, if I am saying somebody's name, which I've said for years, by the way, if I'm saying somebody's name, I don't just have one piece of data. Because my world of self-management for actors is not based on one piece of data equaling truth. It's multiple pieces of data analyzed, pattern established, equals likelihood of truth. That just is the sidebar on that. Anyway, I said, obviously, this is again back at the wedding thing. Obviously, this is one piece of data from years ago. He could have changed. It could be a completely different situation for you. It could have just been a bad day. Who knows? But here is what I have in terms of data for this meeting that you're about to have. And she said, okay, cool, good to know. I'm going anyway. Because of course she's going anyway. It is a high tier opportunity for her. And it's a meeting that has been set up through Web of Trust. And you've got to take the meeting. But you have to prep yourself for what could potentially happen based on what you've heard out there. And also be aware that when something now happens, it is a different world than a few weeks ago when something happens. Because a few weeks ago when something happens, we would go, okay, noted, I'm not working with you. And now it's our responsibility to go, I'm saying that. I'm going to say that. I'm going to make sure people know that. And there are people who are critical right now saying, you should have always been saying. And I say, and for those of us who said, and then the first time we weren't believed, and then we said again, and the second time we weren't believed, and then the third time we said and weren't believed, getting emotional, it makes it really easy to stop saying something, because then people label you as someone they can't work with because you're a problem. And because of that, you have to weigh out the balance between I want to work and I want to get inside this beast so I can change it from within, and I want to be heard, so I'm going to live my life like Corey Feldman or Rose McGowan. And you see the negative impact of being so vocal about stuff so early, because even though those are two great examples of people that we'll look to and say they were always saying this, but they were always saying this to the detriment of their careers. And that's why this balance is something that is so precarious, and it's something that I want us to give ourselves a lot of room to feel all the feelings we're feeling about. I want to give myself a lot of forgiveness. I want us to give one another a lot of forgiveness, and I want us to be extra gentle and extra grace-filled at every turn possible, because we're still just at the very beginning of this. Future me, stoked. I am so excited for future us and what this means to the health and fitness of our business, the same way I am about our country. There's a future that is so much better for the pain that we're having to go through. But that's just it. The pain that we have to go through is the pain that we have to go through. And as leaders, people look to us for what we're supposed to, how they're supposed to feel. Our work as artists is always help define emotions for those who don't have creativity and artistry through which to filter their emotions. So let's lead responsibly with this. And if anybody's got any questions here in your all access monthly tune-up call, *2 to raise your hand to get in the queue, and we will get you in here with any questions that you've got. But since no questions were left in the dojo member area for all access ahead of time, I don't have anything to go to topic-wise outside of this. So again, *2 to raise your hand. Those of you who are on the live call with me here, thank you, Facebook Live in the Getting Gear Graduates space on Facebook there to watch along with us in this behind the scenes. Hope you enjoy the peek. If you want to join the All Access membership so that you can have a part of this monthly coaching, let me know and we'll hook you up. Oh, let's go to lovely Erin. How are you, gorgeous?
I'm good, Bonnie. How are you?
Doing great. And by the way, that right there, my saying, how are you, gorgeous? I've now had to check myself and go, do I have to be more careful calling people honey, baby, gorgeous, goddess woman, rock star? Like, holy shit. Can I not use my sweet Waffle House waitress mouth anymore? Like, how are you?
You know, with me, it's fine.
Okay, good.
I find it charming.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me at all.
Well, because I'm not trying to, like, get something out of you with a power play by calling you gorgeous.
Yeah, no,
so, okay.
There's a huge difference. Yeah, no, I know.
Okay.
That's not at all the case. So, yeah, I've been on the other side of the fence, so I know how that feels.
Right,
No,
right.
Thank you for touching on that, by the way, because I also am feeling that exhaustion just with the news every day, but I really am grateful that you definitely touched on that today, because I think we all definitely needed to hear that and then just have your side of that take of it as well, so I appreciate that.
Absolutely, hon.
A question for you I have in regards to footage on Actors Access and in terms of clips. I know it can vary depending upon individuals, but is there like a number or an amount when you have too many clips on Actors Access or not enough when I always run my footage through the brand filter and where I'm headed and that it's going to be all aligned in that front and then separating it into comedy and drama? Is there like an amount of how many there should be or not? Does that make sense?
I love this question, Erin. Thank you. I think with clips in particular, you're not running a risk of diluting your brand by having too many, because that would assume that a buyer is going in and binge watching all your various clips, and no, ain't nobody got time for that, as the saying goes.
It's like a first date at Disneyland. Like, no.
Yes, perfect analogy. Yes, exactly. It's just a little too much. You have to trust that if I am at all going and looking at the full list, I am looking for something, not through something.
Got it.
And so because of that, you can populate it with a shit ton of things, because more likely than not, you are pushing through the one that you want a specific buyer to see at a specific time because of a submission that you or your reps are pushing you through on. And then if I'm curious enough that I want to go see what else you've got, that's on me. And sure, if you've got something that is so far off brand that you use rarely and you really don't make a ton of money as that weird anomaly clip often enough to run the risk of including it, you could get rid of that. But I think in general, you're safe having tons of clips just because of the way clips are used versus the way linear footage in a demo reel presentation is used.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, great. Thank you.
You bet, sweetheart. Sweetheart. That's okay, too. Okay. I feel like I got to get permission now. It's so weird.
Okay.
Thank you so much, darling.
You're welcome.
Yay. Cool. Anybody else got a question in our monthly call here? That was fun. I like talking about non-sexual crime predator shit for a minute. It's that interview that I went on Thursday. If y'all don't know her, Anna, how does she pronounce her last name? Hang on, let me get it. Lukowska. And it could be Lukowska. this is where I'm bad. I did not ask her while we were together if it's Lukowska or Lukowska. But Anna is a manager at ARC Talent or ARC Artist Management. They've shifted their name recently. And she reached out to me. She has this fabulous blog called Actors for Lunch. It's actorsforlunch.com. And she reached out to me while Keith and I were on vacation and said, I just launched this new blog. I take industry people to lunch. We talk, I interview you, and then I run it at the blog. Are you down? And I was like, absolutely, because that's very much how my career started, with casting cues and interviewing all the various casting directors that I did starting in the late 90s. And so, of course, she and I talked about that. And then ultimately talked about a lot of things, but one of the things that was so cool was getting to talk through a whole bunch of different things about the industry, and yes, talk about the news and the fatigue and all of that, and our responsibility, and how we do have a window of opportunity where we can create massive change in this industry, and to stay focused on the excitement of that. Rather than the depression of just the constant stream of the way it's presented in the media and the way people are reacting is really our work. And that just reminds me, go listen to more Abraham Hicks, do things like this, be of service on a question about clips, because then that's like, oh yes, my brain is a superpower for this kind of thing. Let's go do this. That feels really good. That was so great. There's so much levity to have that conversation for a second. And then get back to the big work at hand. And I think that we could see through generations, there have been times in history where that's been the requirement, is yes, work on that big thing that we're trying to move forward and really do important, big work, but also introduce some levity, get your naps, listen to your Abraham Hicks, do whatever it takes to stay in that self-care bubble so that you can still laugh. And you could still get through it all, because we have important work to do, and so we can't be fatigued. We can't be so fatigued that we can't do the big work. Is basically the through line on that. All right, so then if there are no more questions, I guess we will wrap up our monthly All Access tune-up call for self-management for actors members here in the All Access program for November 11th, 2017. I love getting to share this time with y'all, and of course, as you members listen to the replay in the dojo membership area, make sure to pop in any questions that you have there in the monthly course page, and we'll continue to have dialogue in that space. I'm thrilled to have that time with y'all, of course. And just actually, while I've got you, I'm going to give just a little reminder, timeline-wise. We'll do this again, obviously, December 11th, so, check in for that, and any questions you've got that you want to post ahead of time, get those to us in the dojo. But I'm mentioning now, because it's going to be a little larger this year, we've got Getting Gear for the New Year coming up every year end. As you know, we've done this for several years now, and it's our 11-day free program that runs from the 21st of December to the 31st of December inclusive. So it's an 11-day free training program done via email for the most part, but a lot of it takes place at the Facebook group and on Twitter, and we end up trending and all this super cool stuff. And I just want to remind those of you who are powerful Facebook presences in our private Facebook group for self-management for actors, that right now is going to be the time that we get to welcome a whole lot of new members who are not just new to the Facebook group, but new to the world of self-management for actors. And so one of the things that I'm creating for those of you who have done Getting Gear for the New Year before, and perhaps multiple times, is a best practices leadership guide on how to not only be of service to this new pack of people who are experiencing self-management for actors for the first time, but how also to continue to benefit from the tools check that we do in these last 11 days of the year, so that your goodies continue to be refined. Because you should check in every year with, if not more often, with some of your materials, and make sure that everything is on brand and delivering the message that you anticipate that it will, to help you with your next tier goals. So that is coming, and I'm also creating a mini course on how to create a survey for your headshot, because there are just too many things that we keep having to steer people toward. Less like this, more like this. Oh wait, don't do this, do this. And I'm like, why don't we have a best practices guide on how to survey a headshot? And so that's going to be available as well as add-on tools for this free 11-day program. So I'm just mentioning that now, and I'll mention it again on December 11th because we'll be a lot closer to it at that point. Oh God, one last thing, admin, that I have to remind y'all, because many of you also private coach with me. The 4 days after Thanksgiving, I'm looking at my calendar up here. So the Friday the 24th, so that's Black Friday, Saturday the 25th, which is, what do they call it? Small Business Saturday. Sunday the 26th, which doesn't have a clever name that I know of in the sales world of after Thanksgiving sales. If it does, somebody will tell me, I'm sure. And then on Monday the 27th, which is Cyber Monday, those 4 days, we are going to open up my coaching because I closed it down a little more privately earlier this year. We're going to open it up and offer some really great pricing deals. So if you're an ongoing coaching client already, I know we did this last year back in July of 2016. I did a coaching sale and had a lot of people buy a few coaching sessions just to keep in the bank because the pricing is better than any other time. So we're not yet entirely certain what the entirety of the deal is going to be that we're doing during those 4 days, but I'm just putting on your radar. If you're someone who coaches with me or wants to coach with me, you'll want to keep an eye out for those 4 days and a small window of opportunity to get in with the best deal that we're running. So just putting that out there while I got you, since we're closing up a little earlier than we normally do in our monthly calls. All right, you beautiful people, take a breath, give yourself a lot of love. Give yourself a lot of room for all the things that you're feeling. Give everybody else a lot of room for all the things they're feeling. And at the very least, give yourself a nap when you need it, because I'm telling you, that fixes a lot. We're experiencing a really exciting time right now, and I am so honored to share this experience with such beautiful and strong leaders who inspire me every day. So thank you for the work you're doing and for the work we're doing, because it is important. I love you, beautiful people. We'll do this again December 11th. Till then, take care and stay ninja. Mwah! Bye, guys. Thanks for joining us for this behind the scenes. Stay ninja.